My name is Arthur Underwood, and I'm 72 years old. On a Tuesday in March, my son drove me to a building with locked doors and told the staff I had dementia. I didn't argue. I let the door click shut behind me. He booked it as a 72-hour assessment, the kind families use when they're worried. Daniel wasn't worried. Daniel was running out of time. He told a nurse I forgot my own address. I could have recited the deed to that house line by line. But Daniel got one detail wrong. He had no idea that the doctor who'd sign off on these cases, the one man who could rubber stamp me into oblivion, was his old college roommate. He didn't pick that building for the doctor. He just got unlucky. And what happened 3 days later, when a black sedan rolled into that parking lot, not one of them saw coming. They said I'd lost my memory. I remembered every single thing. Welcome back to Dad's Master Plan. Quiet stories about fathers who got pushed too far and answered with patience instead of noise. If betrayal inside a family is something you've lived, this one will stay with you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. Daniel picked me up at 9. He smiled too much. Just a checkup, Dad, he said, holding my coat like I'd forgotten how sleeves work. Vanessa sat up front. She held a blue folder on her lap and said nothing the whole way. My daughter-in-law is a careful woman. She doesn't waste words, and she doesn't waste a single move. I watched the town slide past the window. 41 years I'd lived in Millhaven. I knew which traffic lights stayed red too long. Daniel hadn't called me in 3 weeks. Now suddenly he was concerned about my health. "Where are we headed?" I asked. I already knew. I wanted to hear him say it. "A place that runs some tests," he said. "Memory stuff, just to be safe." Daniel only worries out loud when he wants something quietly. I learned that when he was 9 and broke the garage window. He brought me coffee that morning, too. The folder on Vanessa's lap had a real estate logo on the corner. I built houses for a living. I know a listing packet when I see one. "Your mother would have liked this weather," I said. Daniel's jaw tightened. He doesn't like when I mention Margaret. 14 months gone, and he changes the subject every time. We turned onto a long drive lined with maples. A low brick building sat at the end. The sign read, Brookhaven Memory Care in soft, harmless letters. "You'll like it here," Vanessa said. First words all morning. I didn't answer. I was counting exits. Engineers count exits. We turned in, and the parking lot opened wide in front of me, gray and half empty under a flat sky. I didn't know yet how many hours I'd spend staring at that lot. Inside, the air smelled like lemon cleaner over something older. A woman behind the desk looked. Her badge read, Karen Pruitt, Director of Admissions. Daniel leaned in close and lowered his voice. He thought I couldn't hear. I hear fine. "He gets confused," he murmured. "Wanders. Doesn't always know where he is." Karen nodded the way people nod when they've heard it 100 times. She slid a clipboard toward Daniel, not me. "And you're the son with power of attorney?" she asked. "That's right," Daniel said. I set my hand flat on the counter. "My name is Arthur Underwood," I said. "It's Tuesday, March 11th. We're in Millhaven, Pennsylvania." Karen smiled at me the way you smile at a child. "That's wonderful, Mr. Underwood." "He memorizes things," Daniel said quickly, "then loses them an hour later. That's the trap. If I'm calm, I'm in denial. If I'm upset, I'm agitated. There's no answer a man like me can give that they'll write down as sane. So I stopped giving them answers. I stood there, polite, and let them talk about me like furniture being moved. Karen handed Daniel a pen. He signed 3 forms without reading them. I watched his hand. Steady. Practiced. The hand of a man who'd been signing my name lately and gotten good at it. "We'll get him settled," Karen said. 72-hour observation, then the assessment. The word assessment landed soft, but I felt the weight underneath it. Assessment meant a doctor. A doctor meant a signature. A signature meant a house. A young aide took my elbow. "Right this way, sir." I went. For now, I went. A man learns more walking through a door than fighting it. Let me back up 14 months, because none of this makes sense without Margaret. My wife died on a Thursday in January. Pancreatic. 6 weeks from the word to the grave. We were married 47 years. I'd never lived in a house without her in it. After the funeral, I stopped sleeping right. I left lights on all night. I forgot to eat until the hunger turned to nausea. Once I drove to the pharmacy and sat in the lot 20 minutes, unsure why I'd come. I'll be honest with you. Some mornings I wondered if my mind was slipping for real. Grief and dementia can wear the same coat. I scared myself more than once. Daniel noticed. He started telling people, "Dad's not doing well. Dad's getting forgetful." At Thanksgiving, he told my sister I'd called him by the wrong name. I never did, but the story spread, and stories like that grow legs. Daniel never bothered to see the difference between a man who's broken and a man who's grieving. I wasn't losing my memory. I was drowning in it. In the months after, I put things back in order. Bills paid, taxes filed early, 2 books a week. I came back to myself slowly, the way you walk back onto a bridge you helped build. On Margaret's nightstand in the drawer sat a cream envelope, my name in her handwriting on the front. She'd pressed it into my hand in the hospital and said, "Not yet. You'll know when." I hadn't opened it. 14 months, and I still wasn't ready. I should have opened it sooner. It would have told me exactly what was coming. People look at a quiet old man and assume the quiet goes all the way down. I grew up the son of a carpenter in a town smaller than this one. My father built staircases for houses he could never afford. I watched him measure twice and cut once, and I learned the work doesn't lie even when people do. I put myself through engineering school on night shifts. Concrete first, then steel. I started Underwood Structural in a rented garage in 1981 with 2 employees and 1 truck. By the time I sold it, we had 140 people and our name on bridges in 3 states. There's a span over the Allegheny that carries 40,000 cars a day. I ran the load math on a legal pad at my kitchen table. It's still standing. It'll outlive me. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you so you understand what they were actually taking. When I sold the firm, I paid off the house on Linden Street outright. No mortgage, no lien. A 1924 Craftsman I'd restored with my own hands, the same hands that poured those bridge footings. Margaret picked the paint colors. I rebuilt the porch the summer our daughter was born. That house was the last thing I owned that still held her fingerprints. So when my son decided I was too far gone to know my own address, he wasn't only stealing equity. He was trying to erase the one room left where I could still hear her humming in the kitchen. A man will sign away a lot of things. Not that. Never that. I just had to prove I was the one still holding the pen. The first crack showed up in November in a stack of mail I almost threw out. A statement from a lender I'd never used. Home equity line of credit. Linden Street. Balance $280,000. I read it 3 times. I don't have a home equity line. I've never borrowed $1 against that house in my life. I didn't panic. Engineers don't panic. We measure. I called the lender and asked for the origination documents. They mailed them in a flat envelope. Inside was a power of attorney naming Daniel as my agent, and a signature. My signature, except it wasn't. I've written my name 1,000,000 times. I know the way my A leans. I know where my pen lifts off the page. The name on that document leaned the wrong way. The U was too round. Someone had practiced mine and gotten close. Close isn't the same thing. The power of attorney was dated August 4th. I sat with that date a long time. August 4th was the morning of my cataract surgery. I remember the bright lights and the nurse counting backward. I was under anesthesia by 8. I didn't sign anything that day. I couldn't have held a pen if you'd paid me. So my son forged my name to borrow against my house, on a day he knew I'd be unconscious on an operating table. I put the papers back in the envelope. I told no one. Not Claire, not my sister, not a soul. Because the first thing you learn pouring concrete is this: you don't react while it's still wet. You wait, you let it set, then you build on it. For 3 months I built. I drove to the county recorder's office and pulled the original deed to Linden Street. Mine. Clean. I made 2 certified copies and locked the original in a safe deposit box at a bank Daniel didn't know I used. Then I requested my full file from the surgery center, the anesthesia log, the discharge time, checked in at 8:02, sedated by 8:15, not released until 2 in the afternoon, a signed time-stamped record that on August the 4th I was flat on my back with a needle in my arm. A forged signature is a story. A surgery record on the same date is a fact. Facts don't blink. I called an old friend. Diane Voss had been our family attorney for 30 years. She drew up Margaret's trust. She knew the house, the history, all of it. "Arthur," she said, "this is fraud. This is a crime. We call the police today." "Not yet," I told her. She went quiet. "Why on earth not?" "Because he's my son." Because I needed to know if this was a mistake or a plan. Because a father gets to be certain before he ends his own child's life, as he knows it. "Build the file," I told her. "Don't move until I say so." She didn't like it. She did it anyway. 30 years buys that kind of trust. So I had the deed. I had the surgery log. I had a lawyer loaded and waiting. What I didn't have yet was proof of how far Daniel would actually go. Then he booked me a room with a locked door and gave me all the proof I would ever need. Room 14 had a twin bed, a vinyl chair, and a window that looked out over the parking lot. I want you to remember that window. I spent a great deal of time at it. The aide showed me where the bathroom was, as if I might forget. She meant well. The door to the unit locked from the outside with a keypad. I watched the staff punch it in. 4911. They never thought to hide the code from a man who couldn't remember anything. I sat on the bed and ran the math, the way I'd run load math my whole life. If the assessment found me incompetent, Daniel becomes my conservator. He needed that order badly. A forged power of attorney was enough to fool a loan desk, but no title company would close a house sale on it, and I could revoke the thing the day I noticed. A court order's different. The man at Cage's can't tear it up. With it, Daniel sells the house, clears the balloon payment coming due on that loan, and no one ever thinks to ask how the loan got there in the first place. Who questions a son selling his demented father's home to pay for his care? It was clean. I'll give him that. It was almost clean. Almost is the whole story. Outside, the lot held a dozen cars under the gray light. I watched a visitor walk to her sedan and pull away. The lot emptied a little more. I had 72 hours before the assessment. 3 days to let them show their hand all the way down to the felt. I'd set a deadline of my own. I just hadn't told anyone what it was. I lay back on the thin pillow and listened to the locks settle in the hall. 3 days, that's all I'd given myself. Morning at Brookhaven came with applesauce and a man named Walter, who thought it was 1962. I liked Walter. He'd been a machinist. He told me the same story about a Buick 4 times before lunch, and each time I let him tell it. He couldn't help where his mind had gone. That's real. That was the thing they were trying to fake about me. I watched the floor. Mostly I watched Karen Pruitt. She moved fast and signed faster. Twice I caught her on the phone in the hall. "The family wants the assessment moved up," she said. "Tell Dr. Reyna we'd like it Thursday." Thursday. They were trying to rush me. At lunch, an aide cut my meat without asking. I let her. A man learns more by watching than protesting. I noticed which staff actually looked at the residents and which ones looked straight through them. A woman named Rosa looked. She caught me reading the newspaper, really reading it, front to back, and she paused. "You follow the news, Mr. Underwood?" "Every day," I said. "Front page to the crossword." She studied me a second, then she moved on, but something in her face had shifted. She'd seen it. The lights were on. I filed Rosa away. You never know who you'll need. That afternoon I sat by the window and watched the lot fill and empty. I thought about Margaret's envelope in the nightstand drawer at home, still sealed. I'd asked Claire to bring me a box of her mother's things. I hadn't told her why. The assessment was coming, and a doctor I'd never met was about to walk into my room. He came Wednesday afternoon, younger than I expected, maybe 40. Good shoes, tired eyes, a clipboard he held like a shield. "Mr. Underwood, I'm Dr. Reyna," he said. "I'm going to ask you a few questions. Nothing to worry about." "Grant Reyna?" I read off his badge. "Reyna. Good name. Means king, doesn't it?" He blinked. He hadn't expected etymology from the dementia patient. He sat, flipped a page, and read my chart. I watched his eyes catch on the top line, my last name. He read it twice. Something moved across his face. Not recognition of me. Recognition of something else. "Underwood," he said slowly. "Huh. Common enough name," I said. "It is." He cleared his throat and started the questions. "What year is it? Who's the president?" Count backward from 100 by sevens. I answered all of it. Cleanly. No hesitation. 93, 86, 79. I drew the clock he asked for, hands at 11:10, numbers spaced, even. I'd designed gauges harder than that before breakfast for 40 years. Rayna's pen slowed, then it stopped. He looked at me differently now, not like a chart, like a problem that wasn't adding up. "Mr. Underwood," he said carefully, "do you know why your family brought you here?" "I have a theory," I said. He waited. I didn't fill the silence. The man who speaks first in a quiet room usually loses something. Rayna closed his clipboard halfway. "Can I ask you something off the record?" "You can ask." "Are you related," he said, "to a Daniel Underwood?" "He's my son," I said. Rayna sat back. The chair creaked. For a moment he wasn't a doctor. He was somewhere 20 years gone. "I roomed with a Daniel Underwood," he said. "Penn State, sophomore year." "Small world," I said. "It wasn't small, it was arranged. I just didn't know yet who'd done the arranging." He rubbed his jaw. "Your son told intake you've had significant memory loss, disorientation, trouble recognizing family. And what do you find, doctor?" He looked at the clock I'd drawn, at the perfect count, at a man who'd named the meaning of his own surname on sight. "I find," he said slowly, "a discrepancy. That's a careful word, a doctor's word, but I heard what was sitting under it." Rayna stood and walked to the window. He stared out at the parking lot a while, the way I'd been doing for 2 days. "Can I be honest, Mr. Underwood?" "I'd prefer it." "Your son and I weren't close," he said. "He borrowed money he never paid back. Asked me once to take a quiz for him. I said no. He found someone who said yes." I nodded. That was the boy I raised, apparently. The one I kept hoping I'd misjudged. "And now," Rayna said, 20 years later, his father turns up on my caseload. Daniel didn't request me. He didn't call ahead. I'd bet he doesn't even know I work here. Does that bother you?" "It does," he said. "Considerably. Nobody arranged for me to be here. Nobody asked me for a favor, so there's nothing stopping me from doing this honestly." He didn't sign anything that day. He told Karen he needed more time. He had no idea I'd already built the case he was about to need. Let me step out of the story a second. I'll be honest with you. Sitting in that room, answering questions about what year it is, for a man who designed bridges that still carry traffic, there's a particular shame in it. If anyone's ever made you prove you're still yourself, you know the exact weight I mean. Stay with me. It turns. If this is hitting home, subscribe so you don't lose the thread. Now back to Rayna. That evening, after he left my room, the doctor sat in his car in that parking lot a long while. He told me all this later, so I'm filling it in for you. He kept circling one fact. Of all the places Daniel could have picked, he'd landed his father in the one building where the assessing doctor was a man he'd wronged 20 years ago. Daniel hadn't planned it. He couldn't have. He had no idea Rayna was within 100 miles. That was the part that unsettled the doctor most. Not a scheme he could refuse. A coincidence that had dropped the whole truth into his lap. Rayna pulled my chart up on his tablet. He read the intake notes Daniel had given. Wanders. Forgets his address. Doesn't recognize family. Then he read what he'd written that afternoon. Oriented to time, place, and person. Serial sevens without error. No clinical sign of impairment. 2 stories. Only one of them was true. He sat there in the dark lot and made a decision. He was a physician. In this state, that makes him a mandatory reporter. If he suspected a vulnerable adult was being defrauded, the law didn't ask him to stay quiet. He picked up his phone. He didn't call Daniel. He started looking up who held my legal paperwork. And that search was about to lead him straight to a woman in a black sedan. Daniel and Vanessa came Thursday morning. They didn't come to see me. They came to push. I heard them before I saw them. The unit door buzzed and Vanessa's heels clicked down the hall toward Karen's office. I stepped to my doorway. Sound carries in a building like that. "We need the assessment done," Vanessa said. "Why is it delayed?" "The physician wants more time," Karen said. "It's protocol." "We don't have time," Daniel said. Low, tight. "There's a closing." A closing. The word went through me like cold water. "The buyer's pre-approved," Vanessa said. "We can't sit on it. If the conservatorship isn't granted, we lose the offer." So it was already done. Before any judge had ruled me anything, before a doctor signed a single page, they'd listed my house, found a buyer, set a closing date. They weren't planning to take my house someday. They'd already sold it. They were just waiting on a piece of paper that said I was too far gone to notice. I stood in that doorway, and I'll tell you what I felt. Not rage. Rage is loud, and loud loses. I felt the quiet a man feels when the last doubt leaves him. I'd wanted to be certain. Now I was. I went back to my window. Out in the lot, Vanessa's white SUV sat in a visitor space, that blue folder propped on the dash. The listing, the closing, my whole life, packaged for sale on the dashboard of a car. Claire was coming that afternoon with her mother's box. I knew now exactly which thing in that box I needed. Claire came at 4 with a cardboard box and red eyes. My daughter is 37, and the only one of my children who ever calls just to talk. She set the box on the bed and held my face in both hands. "Dad," she whispered, "you're not confused. I can see it. Why are you here?" "Sit down, Claire," I said. "I'll explain everything soon." She'd brought what I asked. Margaret's things. The reading glasses, the blue scarf, and at the bottom, the cream envelope from the nightstand drawer. My name in Margaret's hand. I'd carried it 14 months unopened. My hands weren't steady now. I opened it. 2 pages. Her careful schoolteacher script. I'll read you part of it. "Arthur, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong, and I'm not there to stand beside you. So listen to me. You always saw the best in Daniel. I loved you for it. But I saw the rest. He counts. He's counted his whole life. What's coming, what he's owed. One day he'll come for what we built, and he'll tell you it's love. The deed and the trust are with Diane. If it ever comes to this, call her first, not the police. Diane. And Arthur, don't you dare let them tell you your mind is gone. I married your mind. Don't let them take it." I read that last line twice. I married your mind. Don't let them take it. Claire was crying. I wasn't. Margaret had seen all of this coming years before any of it arrived. She'd left me a map. Now I knew exactly where to step. Here's the part nobody saw. Not Daniel. Not Vanessa. Not even Claire, until I told her in that room. I let them put me here. 3 months I'd known about the loan. I had the deed. I had the surgery log. I had Diane loaded and waiting. I could have called the police in November and ended it in a week. I didn't. People ask me why. I'll tell you the same thing I told my daughter. A forged signature on a loan you can explain away. Maybe a mistake. Maybe identity theft. Maybe a son who panicked once and meant to put it back. I needed to know which. So I waited. I let Daniel think I was fading. I went vague on the phone. I forgot. A lunch. I handed him just enough rope to either pull back or build a gallows. He built the gallows. He walked me through the door himself. A man who panics once doesn't book a locked unit, a rushed assessment, and a closing date. That's not panic. That's a plan with a deadline. "You let him do this?" Claire said. "Dad, that's insane." "No, honey," I said. "It's certain. There's a difference." I told her to text Diane 1 word, now. Then I sat by the window with my wife's letter in my lap and watched the lot. I didn't get trapped in here, Claire. I checked the locks myself. 3 days, the deadline I'd set. Day 3 was tomorrow. While I sat with Margaret's letter, Raina was 3 miles away, pulling threads. He'd done something most doctors wouldn't. He requested my outside medical records, the ones that come with an assessment when a family claims a long decline. Daniel had signed the releases himself, eager to paint the picture. He handed Raina the rope without knowing what was tied to the other end. In the file was the operative report from the surgery center. August 4th. Cataract extraction, right eye, general sedation, check-in 8:02. Discharge 1400. Raina read it twice. Then he pulled the conservatorship petition Daniel's lawyer had filed. Attached to it was the power of attorney Daniel was using to justify the whole thing. The power of attorney was dated August 4th. He laid the 2 pages side by side. A man cannot sign a legal document while sedated for eye surgery. The notary block claimed I'd appeared in person at 2 in the afternoon. The discharge record said I didn't leave recovery until then. Eyes dilated, half asleep, unable to read a menu, let alone a contract. The dates didn't just look wrong. They were impossible. Raina sat with that the way I'd sat with the loan statement in November. The same cold clarity. He wasn't looking at a confused old man anymore. He was looking at a crime, with a date stamped on it. He found the attorney of record on the trust filings, Diane Voss. He called her office and left a message. He didn't know that by then Diane already held a copy of everything in his hand. He didn't know two roads were about to meet. He knew only one thing for certain now. He was never going to sign that paper. Daniel didn't wait for Raina. When the doctor stalled a second time, Daniel went over his head. He called his lawyer, Aldous Fry, the kind who advertises conservatorships on bus benches, and Fry scheduled what they called a family meeting at the facility. Friday morning, a notary would attend. Karen would witness. The plan was simple. Get me in a room, present the petition as a formality, have me sign the conservatorship agreement, voluntarily. If I refused or got upset, that itself became proof I lacked capacity. Fry had run it 100 times. Vanessa coached Daniel in the hall. I caught pieces. Stay calm. Look concerned. If he argues, you look sad, not angry. What if the doctor won't sign? We don't need the doctor. We need the agreement signed today. He's just paperwork. Then Daniel said the thing I'll never forget. The line that told me exactly who my son had become. It's fine, he said. He doesn't even remember signing it. He meant the loan. He'd told himself I was too far gone to know my own name had been forged. He'd said it so many times he believed it. He doesn't even remember signing it. I stood in my doorway and let those words set into me like rebar into a footing. Tomorrow they'd gather their lawyer, their notary, their witness. They'd put a pen in my hand and wait for me to disappear. I went to the window one last time that night. The lot lay empty and silver under the lights. Tomorrow it wouldn't be. Friday morning, before any of them arrived, 2 phone calls had already changed the board. Raina called Diane Voss at 8. He expected to explain everything, the impossible date, the forged power of attorney, the rushed assessment. Instead, Diane listened 30 seconds and said, "Doctor, I have the surgery log too, and the original deed. Arthur's known since November." Raina was quiet a moment. He knew, and he let himself be admitted? He needed proof of intent, Diane said. Now he has it, and so apparently do you. The doctor laughed once, not from humor. From relief, maybe. He'd been bracing to be the only honest man in the building. He wasn't alone, after all. "There's a meeting today," Raina said. 10 o'clock. They're going to try to get him to sign. "I know," Diane said. "I'll be there. Don't sign anything. Don't warn them. Just be in the room." So now there were 3 of us who knew. Me, on the inside, sitting on 3 months of evidence. Diane, with the documents and a plan. And Raina, the old roommate Daniel never dreamed would be in that building, who turned out to be the worst possible witness against him. Daniel thought he'd stacked the room with his people, his lawyer, his notary, the administrator he'd charmed. He'd actually walked his father into a room with the deed. The alibi, the doctor, and the attorney all pointed the same direction. I didn't know every detail that morning. I knew enough. I shaved carefully. I put on the clean shirt Claire had brought. If a man's going to take his life back, he should look like himself doing it. Then I waited for 10 o'clock. Let me lay it out plainly, the way Diane laid it out for Raina that morning. By now you deserve the whole board. The house on Linden Street was mine, free and clear, no mortgage. The only debt against it was a fraudulent loan signed while I was unconscious, which made it not my debt at all. It made it evidence. Margaret's trust held the rest. She'd named me trustee and named Diane as successor. The trust couldn't be reached by a conservator, because a conservatorship over me wouldn't touch assets the trust controlled. Margaret had built that wall on purpose years ago when Daniel was still just ambitious. I held the certified deed. I held the time-stamped surgery record. I held my late wife's letter naming exactly this. And I held the one thing Daniel never imagined a forgetful old man could hold. The patience to wait until he'd committed the whole thing on paper. Daniel thought he was managing a fading father and a paid-off house. He was standing in front of a retired structural engineer who'd spent 40 years calculating how much weight a thing can bear before it fails. He'd loaded his side past the limit. He just couldn't see the cracks yet. "You understand," Diane told Raina. "Arthur could have ended this in November. He chose the harder road. He wanted it done in the open." "Why?" Raina asked. "Because a man like Arthur doesn't want revenge," she said. He wants the truth standing in a room where everyone has to look at it. That was it exactly, not punishment. Daylight. At 9:50, I heard car doors in the lot. It was starting. Before I take you into that room, one more thing. People ask why I didn't just call the police the day I found that loan. Here's the truth. He's my son. Before I ended his life as he knew it, I had to be certain, not suspicious, certain, that he'd really do this to me. If you've ever had to test someone you love, you understand. Comment, I understand, if you do. Now, Claire, the night before the meeting, my daughter drove to Daniel's house. She told me about it after. She sat at his kitchen table and gave him one chance. Tell me the truth, she said. Is Dad sick, or are you lying? Daniel didn't blink. He's sick, Claire. It's hard to watch. You haven't been around. I was around Tuesday, she said. He knew the date. He quoted the news. He's sharper than you. That's the disease talking. Good days and bad. She stood up. There's a closing on his house. I saw the listing. For 1 second she swore it was real. Daniel's face cracked. His eyes went wet. I'm drowning, Claire, he said. I asked him for help once. He said he'd think about it. He didn't help. Then it passed. He wiped his face and added, Anyway, it'll all be mine eventually. That was when Claire chose, not the tears, the sentence after them. Dad's sharper than all of us, she told me later. That's what scares Daniel. She'd be at the meeting, as a witness, for me. Karen Pruitt knew something was wrong before the meeting started. She just didn't want to be the one to say it. I'd watched her 3 days. She wasn't cruel. She was tired. Brookhaven ran short-staffed, and she ran on coffee and a permanent backlog. When Daniel handed her a tidy story and a signed power of attorney, she took it, because taking it was easier than questioning it. 40 families a month walk through her door saying the same words. He's not himself. He wanders. He forgets. But Raina's 2 delays had landed on her desk like a question she couldn't unhear. That morning, before the family arrived, she pulled my intake file and actually read my assessment. Oriented to time, place, and person. No clinical sign of impairment. She read it twice. She'd admitted a man her own physician said was fine, on the word of a son in a hurry, with a real estate folder on his dashboard. I saw her at the nurse's station, the file open, her thumb pressed white against the edge. For a moment, I thought she might do the right thing on her own. She didn't. She closed the file. She told herself it wasn't her call. She told herself the doctor would handle it. The lawyers would handle it. Anyone but her. I understood her. I even pitied her a little. But understanding isn't forgiving. She'd held the truth in her hand and set it down, because picking it up cost more than she wanted to pay. She walked into that meeting room anyway and took her seat as the facility's witness. She had no idea what she was about to witness instead. I could have stopped it before it started. That morning, Diane texted me a single line. Say the word, and I bring the police instead of a briefcase. Your call. I sat on the edge of room 14's bed and thought about it. The easy road was right there. Officers, handcuffs. My son walked out a side door, quiet, final, no audience. But quiet wasn't what I wanted, not this time. For 3 days they'd talked about me as if I weren't in the room. For 3 months Daniel had told everyone I was gone. Gone in the head. Gone as a man. A problem to be managed and liquidated. He'd said it to my sister, to Karen, to a notary, to himself. I wanted all of them in one room. The lawyer who filed the papers, the administrator who signed me in, the notary who'd stamped a date I was unconscious, my son, his wife. I wanted them assembled, comfortable, sure they'd already won, and then I wanted the truth to walk through the door and stand in front of every one of them at once. Not because I'm cruel, because daylight only works if people are there to see it. I texted Diane back, bring the briefcase, come to the meeting. Then I added a second line, and Diane, park where I can see you. I'd earned the right to watch that lot one more time. I tucked Margaret's letter into my shirt pocket, against my chest, and walked down the hall toward the room they'd prepared for my disappearance. I'll admit it, I was almost looking forward to it. Let me give you the night before first, because that's where I made my peace. I couldn't sleep. I stood at the window of room 14 the better part of an hour, the way I had every night that week. The parking lot lay empty under the sodium lights, every space marked in faded white paint. I'd stared at that lot until I knew it like a blueprint. I took out Margaret's letter and read it again by the glow from the hall. I married your mind. Don't let them take it. 47 years. She'd known me better than I knew myself, and she'd known our son better than he knew himself too. She wrote that letter while she was dying, thinking not of her own fear, but of mine, of this exact morning. I wasn't angry at Daniel that night. I was sad in a way that doesn't make a loud sound. The boy who brought me coffee. The boy who broke the garage window and confessed before I even asked. Somewhere along the line he'd started counting, and the counting at everything else. You don't stop loving your child because he becomes a thief. You just stop letting him near the safe. I folded the letter and put it back in my shirt pocket. I'd carry her into that room with me. In the morning, the lot would fill. Daniel's car, Fry's car, the notary's, and one more. A black sedan I'd asked Diane to park where I could see it through the glass. I slept 2 hours. It was enough. Day 3 had come. They gathered in the conference room at 10. It was a small room with a laminate table and a window, of course a window, looking out on that same lot. Someone had set out a pitcher of water and a stack of papers turned face down. A notary in a gray cardigan sat at the end, stamp ready. Karen took the chair by the door. Fry, the lawyer, sat at the head like he owned it, a leather folio open in front of him. Daniel and Vanessa sat across from my empty chair. Claire stood against the wall, arms crossed, where Daniel clearly hadn't expected her. An aide brought me in. I walked on my own. I sat in the chair they'd left me and folded my hands on the table. "Good morning, Mr. Underwood," Fry said, slow and loud, the way people talk to the very old. "We're just here to help you and your family with some paperwork. Nothing to worry about." "Good morning," I said, calm, clear. I let them hear how clear. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. Vanessa watched me the way a hawk watches a field. Fry slid the first page across. "This appoints your son to assist with your affairs. Just sign at the tab." I looked at the paper. I didn't pick up the pen. "My son tells you I'm confused," I said to the room. Fry smiled. "It's all right. We're here to take care of you." Then Daniel said it. To the lawyer, half under his breath, the same words from the hallway. "He doesn't even remember signing it." I looked at my son, and outside in the lot, a black sedan turned in off the road. Fry kept talking. He hadn't noticed the car. "Mr. Underwood, I understand this is overwhelming," he said. "Your family loves you. They want what's best." "I'm sure they do," I said. Vanessa leaned forward and opened the blue folder, the one that had ridden on her dashboard for a week. She slid a page toward Fry, businesslike, and I saw it clearly now, a listing sheet. My house. Professional photos of Margaret's kitchen. A price. Clipped behind it. A purchase agreement, half signed, waiting on a closing. "We've got the sale paperwork ready too," Vanessa told Fry. "Once the conservatorship's in place, Daniel executes it the same day." "The same day," I repeated. "It's a good offer, Dad," Daniel said, finally looking up. "You can't keep that big house alone. It's not safe." "Safe," I said. I tasted the word. "You're worried about my safety." "We all are." Claire made a sound against the wall. Fry raised a hand to quiet the room and uncapped his pen. "Let's get the agreement signed," he said, and then the conference room door opened. A woman in a charcoal suit walked in, unhurried, a thick accordion file under one arm. Behind her came a second person with a laptop bag, and behind him a third, a woman with a county badge clipped to her jacket. Fry's pen stopped midair. "I'm sorry," Karen said, half rising. "This is a private family meeting." "It is," the woman in charcoal agreed. "I'm family counsel, Diane Voss. I represent Arthur Underwood." The room went still. I didn't move. I folded my hands a little tighter and waited. For 3 days I'd watched that parking lot the way a sailor watches weather. Now the weather had arrived, and it wore a charcoal suit. Diane set her accordion file on the table and didn't sit. "I'll be brief," she said, "because brevity is a kindness here." Fry recovered first. He puffed up. "Counsel, this is a routine conservatorship. The proposed protected person lacks—" "The proposed protected person," Diane said, "passed a full cognitive assessment 2 days ago, administered by your own facility's physician. I have the notes." She laid a page on the table. "Raina's assessment, oriented to time, place, and person, No clinical sign of impairment. Karen went pale. She'd read that same page that morning and set it down. "Where is Dr. Reyna?" Fry demanded. "Parking," Diane said. "He'll join us. He has a few things to say about being asked to rush a diagnosis that doesn't exist." Daniel had gone very still, the kind of still a man goes when the floor he's standing on starts to creak. "This is harassment," Vanessa said, but her voice had lost its edge. The woman with the county badge stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm with Adult Protective Services. We received a mandated report from a physician. I'm here to observe." The man with the laptop sat up at the far end of the table, without a word. Diane gestured to him. "Forensic accountant. He's been reviewing the loan taken against Mr. Underwood's home." The word loan landed in the room like a drop plate. Daniel's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I looked at my son across that laminate table, and for the first time in 3 months, I let him see that I'd been awake the entire time. "Hello, Daniel," I said quietly. "Sit down. You'll want to hear this." Diane opened the accordion file like a surgeon opening a tray. "Let's go in order," she said. "Document 1. The deed to 14 Linden Street, recorded 1994. Owner, Arthur Underwood. No liens." She set the certified copy on the table. "Free and clear, as it's been for 30 years. Fry reached for it. She slid the next page over his hand. "Document 2. A home equity line of credit. $280,000 taken against that property last August. Executed under a power of attorney naming Daniel Underwood as agent." She tapped the date. "Dated August 4th. "That's a valid power of attorney," Fry said. "Signed and notarized." "Document 3, Diane said. She placed the surgery center's operative report beside it. The forensic accountant turned his laptop so the screen faced the room. The same record. The timestamps highlighted in yellow. "On August 4th, Diane said, "at the exact hour that notary block claims Arthur Underwood appeared in person to sign, Mr. Underwood was under general sedation at Millhaven Surgical Center. Cataract extraction checked in at 8:02. Discharged at 2. Eyes dilated, unable to read." She let it sit. "A man cannot sign a contract while unconscious on an operating table. So either your client has proof he was in 2 places at once," she looked at Fry, "or that signature is forged. There's no third option." Karen put her hand over her mouth. The notary in the gray cardigan flipped frantically through her own log. Then Daniel found his voice. He turned to me and tried the only thing he had left. "Dad," he said loud, performing for the room, "tell them. You don't even remember the loan. You signed it. You just forgot. Like you forget everything now. He doesn't even remember signing it. The line he'd built his whole plan on." I looked at him. The room waited. "You're right," I said. "I don't remember signing it." Daniel almost smiled. I let the pause stretch 1 full second. "Because I never did." The room broke open then. Not loudly. That's the thing people get wrong about moments like this. It broke quietly, the way ice does. Daniel stood up so fast his chair tipped. "You're confused," he said. "You don't know what you're—" Sit down, son. This is her fault." He jabbed a finger at Vanessa. "It was her idea. The facility. The lawyer. All of it. I just went along—" "I beg your pardon," Vanessa said, ice all the way through. "You said he'd never know." Daniel turned on her. "You said he was already gone." So there it was. No apology. Just 2 thieves discovering the floor had opened under both of them, each grabbing for the other. The investigator was writing. The accountant was writing. The notary had gone the color of her cardigan. Daniel swung back to me, and now the tears came. Real ones, I think, though with Daniel you never could be sure. "I was drowning, Dad. The restaurant. I owed everyone. I asked you for help last year, and you said you'd think about it. You didn't help me. I said I'd think about it, I said, because you asked me for $90,000 to keep a failing bar alive. I was deciding how to help without enabling you. You didn't wait for my answer. You forged my name 3 weeks later. It was going to be mine anyway. And there it was. The whole of him in 5 words. I'd raised a boy who started counting my death before I'd finished living." I reached into my shirt pocket and took out the cream envelope. My hands were steady now. "Your mother left me a letter," I said. "She wrote it while she was dying. I'll read you 1 line." The room went silent, even Vanessa. I unfolded it. and read it the way Margaret would have wanted. Plainly, no drama. I married your mind, Arthur. Don't let them take it. I looked up at my son. She saw you coming, Daniel, years ago. She built the trust so you could never do exactly what you tried to do. Your mother protected me from her own child. Sit with that. Daniel sat. Finally, his face was wet and his hands were shaking, and for a moment he looked 9 years old again, standing by a broken garage window. I felt it. I won't pretend I didn't, but I'd carried the other thing longer. You called me confused, I said. My voice never rose. You told a notary, a doctor, your sister, and your own wife that my mind was gone. I folded the letter back into my pocket. I'm not confused, Daniel. I'm patient. You mix the two up. It's going to cost you everything. Fry gathered his folio and tried to leave. Diane stopped him with a sentence. Counsel, your client filed a petition based on a forged instrument. I'd stay if I were you. The investigator has questions. He stayed. I stood up. Nobody told me I could. I just stood. Because I'm a free man, and I'd remembered how that felt. Here's what happens now, I said. I'll say it once, so listen well. The room listened. The conservatorship petition is withdrawn today, or Diane gets it dismissed with sanctions tomorrow. The forged loan goes to the bank's fraud unit and to the county. The accountant's report goes with it. The sale of my house is dead. The buyers get their deposit back with my apology. I turned to Daniel. You're done as my power of attorney, my executor, my anything. You're out of your mother's trust. She wrote you out herself, in case you're wondering. I won't sit at your table, and you won't sit at mine, until you can do it without doing the math on what I'm worth. Dad, I'm not finished. Still quiet. I'm not pressing criminal charges today, not because you deserve mercy, because your mother would have asked me not to, and I still listen to her. But that's a door, Daniel. Not a promise. Behave accordingly. I looked at Karen. You read the assessment this morning. You knew. You sat down anyway. She couldn't answer. There wasn't one. I picked up the certified deed off the table. My deed. My house. My wife's kitchen. I held it the way my father taught me to hold a level, steady and true. I'll see myself out, I said, and I walked to the door, past the lawyer and the notary and the son who'd tried to erase me, and an aide held it open, and I stepped through it on my own 2 feet, into the hallway, toward the lot, toward the car, toward home. Paperwork moves faster than betrayal ever does. The conservatorship petition was withdrawn within the week. Fry didn't wait for sanctions. The bank's fraud unit froze the home equity line the moment they saw the surgery log. The loan was reversed as fraudulent, and the lien came off my house by spring. Adult Protective Services opened a formal case. The county attorney's office took the forensic accountant's report and is, last I heard, still deciding what to do with my son. Daniel was removed as my agent, my executor, and any role that let him touch a dollar of mine. Margaret's trust held exactly as she'd designed it. Diane confirmed he'd never had a path to it at all. The closing collapsed. The buyers were gracious. I sent them a note and a bottle of wine. Brookhaven got a visit from the state licensing board. Karen Pruitt was written up for admitting a resident against her own physician's findings. Raina told me she's been quietly looking for another job since. I don't wish her ruin. I wish her a system that doesn't make cutting corners the easy choice. Daniel and Vanessa didn't survive the pressure. Without my house to bail them out, the debt came due and the marriage came apart trying to carry it. I'm told they blame each other. I imagine they're both right. Claire comes to dinner on Sundays now. We don't talk about her brother much. Some Sundays she catches me at the window, looking out at the street, and she puts a hand on my shoulder and says nothing at all. That's the best kind of family, the kind that knows when nothing is the right word. Grant Raina and I have lunch once a month. He never did sign that paper. And the house on Linden Street is still mine. I sit on the porch. I rebuilt the summer Claire was born, and in the evening, if the window's open, I can still hear the echo of someone humming in the kitchen. I told Daniel he's welcome at my table the day he can sit there without doing the math on what I'm worth, because your name and your mind are the deed to everything you are, and the people who truly love you will guard them, never forge them. That's my story. 3 days behind a locked door, one old friend who noticed, one letter that saw it coming, and a black sedan right on time. If this reminded you to check your power of attorney today, do it. Share this, drop a comment, and subscribe.